Okay. Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the March 2024 edition of the Poetry Playhouse Open Mic Series. And I stress the year because tonight is the 4th anniversary of the start of our Zoom readings. That was March 2020. You know what was going on. We don't have to explain why we moved from a brewery, Cactus, down the road in Bernalillo, to Zoom. And it was a mixed blessing, certainly, but we met, we met a lot of new poets, made a lot of new friends, and some of whom we've met in person subsequently. So anyway, hopefully an auspicious anniversary. We're starting to do more in-person things as well here. We'll let you know if you're on the mailing list about those. Tonight, it's our pleasure, Jules and my pleasure, to feature Casa Urraca Press from Abiquiu, New Mexico, a relatively new press, but they're doing fine work. We'll be joined by their editor, Zach Hively, and 2 of Casa Urraca's authors, Vivian, Mary Carroll, and River Stingray. We're going to have a short conversation with Zach, followed by readings by the 3 poets, then hopefully some Q&A, and then the usual open mic. I wanted to say that we first became acquainted with Casa Urraca Press because they published 5 books by our good friend and esteemed poet Margaret Randall. Storm Clouds Like Promises, Uncanny Promises, and Home is one of them. And here's another, her essays, which are thinking about thinking among them. And then we've discovered some of the books by other noted poets, Richard Vargas, V.B. Price, Amaris Ketchum, and Albuquerque Poet Laureate Anna C. Martinez, among others. So it's an exciting press, and we're looking forward to learning more about it tonight. Zach Hively is a UNM alum. He's a humorist, poet, and creative nonfiction author whose most recent works include the poetry collections Desert Apocrypha, which was the recipient of the Reading the West Book Award for Poetry, also Owl Poems and Wild Expectations. So I'd like to bring Zach on the screen, and we can have a little bit of a conversation for a few minutes. And hi, Zach.
Hi, John. You did such a good job building us up. All I can do now is tear us back down. So let's do it.
Okay. Don't do that. Anyway, I wanted to start with an obvious question about, how and why you started the press.
Yeah. It's fun to hear you commemorate the 4-year anniversary of your all's first Zoom reading, because I moved back to New Mexico in 2019, and this was the idea keeping me up nights. So it was right around February 2020 where I said, okay, let's do this, and filed for an LLC. And then a month later, suddenly had a much different sort of availability with my time. So we published our first books in the fall of 2020. And, there's a few reasons for how and why this got started. On one level, it was the idea of keeping me up nights. And when that starts to happen, at some point, you can't ignore it anymore. But it also, what was there, and it's really only become clearer to me over the last 4 years, is just how much good writing there is in New Mexico, in the Southwest. The literary arts here are phenomenal. And yet we, even as New Mexicans, a lot of the people here are probably largely excluded from this, but in general, we don't recognize the strength of our literary arts. The visual arts, you think of Canyon Road, you think of so many artists who've lived here and worked here that, oh yeah, we'll stand toe to toe with New York or anywhere else on that. But the literary arts, even in crowds of New Mexicans, I can ask, name some New Mexico authors, and we get Anaya, and we get Hillerman. Sometimes we get another Hillerman. That's about it. Like almost universally, that's what people can name. And I just go, okay, there is so much more here. And there are good presses. There's what you all are doing with the Poetry Playhouse. There's a handful of others. And we can't have enough. We cannot have enough of us publishing Southwestern, but especially New Mexican writers, because the world deserves to hear what we have to say.
Well
and
said.
and I think I've been trying to articulate this lately. I think New Mexico, we're different, and we're culturally different. We're historically different. Our mindset's different. Our pace of life is different. And I think so much publishing in the United States happens on the East Coast, and they don't know quite what to make of us. And we're also not exotic enough to be celebrated as, the same as an editor saying, look, and I discovered a new Colombian novelist or this great Nigerian poet. So we fall between the cracks a lot. And so
people keep
I've just
confusing.
said,
I was just going to say they keep confusing us with Arizona.
yeah, at the worst of times. So yeah, it really comes down to wanting to make good books, wanting to champion the writers I believe in, and to put New Mexico literary arts right up there toe to toe with what anyone else is doing.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. If you might even have a full feature in New York Times Magazine on the Santa Fe art scene, right? Or references in the New Yorker, but for the visual arts here, but never for the literary arts. So I think
Very seldom. Unfortunately, it happens when someone dies. With John Nichols or Cormac McCarthy, suddenly, oh, guess where they lived?
Yeah. So, there might have been a mention when Robert Creeley died or something, So, but it's but that's one of the things that we've been trying also to do our small part to make people aware of the richness of writing and writers here in New Mexico. And that's why for the past year, the year before, we were concentrating a lot on Poets Laureate of New Mexico and featuring quite a few of them. And then this past year, we've been, since September, we've been concentrating on presses and anthologies from New Mexico. So that's also been interesting. And actually in September, we'll be featuring Michelle Otero and Levi Romero with their New Mexico anthology. So yeah. You mentioned starting the press in February of 2020. If I were, a marketing person, I would say that's got to be the worst possible timing you can think of. And I know in our case, we were publishing books through that period, but quite frankly, we found, it daunting without bookstore readings or library readings. We found, and we've talked to other people that said that, it was a challenge to sell books because, selling in person makes so much difference. If you can see someone, and people are much more apt to pick up a book if they can get it signed in front of them and that kind of thing. So I guess the question I guess is, how did you deal with that hurdle or that impediment?
I mean, frankly, for the first year or so, we didn't. we, now I'm trying to remember when exactly it was. I think summer 21, we had our first public event, author event of any kind. So almost a year after the first book was published. It was a lot of Zoom readings. It was a lot of authors doing what they could to make connections otherwise. Some just were game to do a lot of Zoom readings. Some were game to do different kinds of creative social media giveaways, videos, things like that to engage readers. But it was also a struggle. The beauty for me in that time was that it just got to be about making books.
Yeah.
And just by the nature of it, it was less about selling books, which is unfortunately not very sustainable on its own. So it is, how do we get readers and authors connected? Because you're absolutely right. I can tell the whole world how great some of these books are, and it doesn't matter a tenth of an author standing in front of someone and reading a poem or reading a story and looking them in the eyes and making a connection. And that's just actually the fun part about that is it reminds me, we're all talking about book stuff that's written down, but that this is all oral in its origins, that we're telling stories around the proverbial campfire in the cave. We, especially poetry, I find this is just our attempts to preserve on paper the oral experience. And so getting to do more events, Zoom is wonderful, but actually seeing more in-person events, I just find it's really tapping into something primal with people. And it's a thrill as a publisher to get pictures from events that I'm not able to attend because of geography and whatnot, and see a room full of people listening to a book that I'm like, hey, we helped make that. The writer did the real grunt work. We just tried to make it look pretty because we do judge books by their covers. But hey, look, there's 40 people experiencing this magic that I know is in that book. So COVID made that a slow progress, but we really got to focus on the book as artifact. And now we get to focus more on the book as conduit, I guess, between writer and reader or listener.
Can I ask something, John?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jules. Yeah.
Light myself here. Yeah, but I first met Zach when we had Margaret Randall and Barbara Byers doing a reading, and Zach was very generous and sent books down or had sent them with Margaret, down to the Playhouse. We had a reading, and then I just was amazed at the quality of the production of the books and the beautiful colors and the art.
Jules, is that a back porch? The back porch reading?
Yeah, and there's something special about Casa Urraca's just your art and design. I don't know who does your design, if you want to briefly mention that. But yeah, just the quality of the books is amazing as well. So
thank you, Jules. It comes down to a few different factors. I have been the designer of most of our books, though not all, which has been a lot of fun, and have contracted out with some other people. I know some other designers and artists. I do want to talk a little bit more about this, but I really believe in putting myself through what I'm asking all my authors to go through. So my book that's coming out later this year, I had another New Mexican designer do it and just said, here's my book, make something, and then just let go and said, I trust you, because it's a scary thing to do with your work. But there's the design side and then there's the artwork side, and I am not a visual artist in that sense. So most of the books have artwork sourced from somewhere, and it's pretty incredible. A lot of books, actually, it's artwork sourced from the writers themselves, because they're so multi-talented. Actually, both of our poets tonight are in one way or another responsible for the artwork behind the book cover design. A lot of times it's collaborations with someone that the writer knows, Margaret and Barbara being an obvious example. But it's fun because, it's part of championing New Mexico writers, is people taking them seriously. And I think we all know this experience of seeing a book in a bookstore and it does not look professionally done. Sometimes these come from publishers, especially small presses, And sometimes these are author publishers doing things on a budget and maybe don't have the software to do this or the experience. And you judge these books. And we might be missing out on some really fantastic literature because it looks like someone, slapped Times New Roman on a photograph in Word and it came out blurry. And you just, on some subconscious level, you judge this. So from the start, I said every single one of these books needs to feel really good as an artifact on your eyes, on your hands, because that's how you get people to connect to what the writer's doing. So you saying that, Jules, actually just like really touched me because that's been one of the guiding lights from the start.
Yeah.
Is let's make books that entice people, that feel good.
Yeah. And I think, and we try to do that too, either local artists or the book covers are hard. That's what sells books, but it's a piece of art. And how does it go with the poet and the poetry? And I think of all this, where some of the AI generated junk is going and all that, and why we still, working with local artists, and they'll let us get permissions and to use their art, and then that's good exposure for them as well.
Yeah.
And it's always a village or a collaboration, I think.
Yeah. And we've been fortunate to work with a really fantastic local artist, Denise Weaver Ross, who, basically is in charge of the cover. We'll get art from whomever, but she always kind of has the final say on the cover.
Somebody with a degree in graphic design.
Yeah.
That
helps.
We're the words part, but
I think it helps to have some continuity, somebody that gives it some continuity. So yeah, but yeah, and you're up in Abiquiu, which is of course known for a different kind of visual art up there.
Yes.
But yeah, so, but probably a place without a lot of distractions for working on your books. And
it all depends on what distracts you, because I feel like, I can walk out my door and just pretty much keep going till I hit the Jemez and maybe only have to cross a couple roads. So, distraction is a relative term. But yes, definitely not a bustling urban atmosphere out here. And it's right where I need to be. It's where the creativity does come to me. And I feel like I do have the space for my own writing and for everyone else as I work with to give it space, to find inspiration, to find what I can connect with. Yeah, it's a special place out here.
I think one last question, just, where do you see the press in 5 years?
Abiquiu. I know that's not what you mean, but
yeah,
that's a great question. On one level, it's just doing more of what we're doing, which is finding more authors to champion and better ways to connect. I think that's really where the difference will be noticeable. Of course, the roster of authors of books will grow. In 4 years, we're up to, I'd have to count the 20 some books, and probably, Margaret's altogether is one, and then so probably 15-ish writers. And but it's going to be, I think, finding more creative, innovative ways to connect those authors with their readers. We're not breaking new ground here in publishing. It's a pretty established industry. But I think continuously saying, okay, just like the impetus behind the press, New Mexico's different, the American West is different. How else can we do this? And I think you all are doing a lot of that at the Playhouse. And there's going to be ways through the books, through the promotion of books, through author events, through the writers who come into the fold, that we're just going to keep creating new ways of making those connections. So I think that's going to be, from 4 years ago in COVID with almost no connection to now to 5 more years from now. I think that's where the big noticeable differences are going to be. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we're excited. Thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you around. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say, we hope to see you around in person at
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
local
absolutely.
events, bookstores, like we've seen you, in Santa Fe at Collected Works. And if you get
Yep.
down to Albuquerque, and all the supporting
that.
independent bookstores, the Poets Picnic or conventions, anything like that. So it's always good to, so
Yeah.
our audience to
Totally.
support local books. All
Yes,
right.
and thank you all for the support. I do want to, unless you had other questions, I want to like set the runway here for
I
the other
want to
poets.
turn things over to you for the next part of the program. So
Awesome.
okay.
Thank
Over.
you. Thank you, John, Jules, for having us. And we may have a few minutes at the end for Q&A if you all had questions about the press. We can chat. I also don't want to overrun too long. I really do just want to hand it over to these other poets, but I have to embarrass them a little first. And before, oh, there's River. I promised River that I would read a poem first, because that'll just ease things along. I do also really believe in what I said about putting myself through what I'm asking everyone else at Casa Urraca Press to go through. Having book covers designed, if I'm asking people to go do author events, I'm doing author events. I treat my own books as experiments. The one I'm going to read from actually was the very first book we published, because I said I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I need to make them on my work first. Um, and my book that I held up, that's actually a book of essays. We're doing our first ever Kickstarter launch in April. Casa Urraca Press on Kickstarter. You can go ahead and follow it. But I said, okay, I want to try this, but I'm going to learn on mine. So if it's successful, or if I learn good lessons from it, who knows? This will be one of those things in 5 years that we'll have all kinds of other platforms for launching books. But this is me stalling. So let me read one poem. This one was decided for me because the other evening I was standing out back with the dogs. About this time of night, actually, the sun was down, but it was still light out. And this blue heron just like flew right over the house. And it just knocks you back, right? So here's a poem I wrote from the book Wild Expectations called I Saw a Heron Once. I saw a heron once, she said. You're really lucky if you see one. They're private birds and good omens, a rare spotting. You smile and say nothing. 3 herons flew over you while you rode your bike this morning. Yesterday, a heron hunted with all its poise beneath the river bridge. Good omens? Maybe the herons have chosen you as their charity case. Or, bear with us here, we know this isn't as charming as mystical missives from animal spirits. Maybe luck arrives as beauty to those who submit themselves to see and be seen by the silent hunters of the world. Um, yeah, so I'm really excited to have River and Vivian here tonight. And when Jules asked me if I wanted to do this event, she said, I'll recommend some poets. And John rattled off some names of poets that a lot of you know that I could have invited. And I thought, you know what? No. In the months after this, I have 2 books coming out from 2 debut poets. That to me is there's this beautiful balance between the 2 of them, because they're at such different life stages and their poetry is so different, and yet they both have their debut books coming out. And it's just this magical, beautiful time. And they've both been such joys to work with and so patient with me in this process. So River and I actually met in Santa Fe at a coffee shop, weirdly enough. She had her adorable dog, and she and a friend were working on stuff. So, of course, we just had to chat about the dog and yada, yada, yada. I'm a poet. Oh, no way. I'm a poet. Can I read your stuff? And we were just talking, and I read her stuff and went, this is hungry and this is good. Like this is someone who's going somewhere. And the fact that she then wanted to publish with Casa Urraca for her debut book of poetry, just I'm still bowled over by this. So high wind warning. is available now as a pre-sale on the Casa Urraca Press bookstore. I think Jules has the link to drop in, and if not, I can. It's going to come out in April, so in just less than a month, in about 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks from today, it'll be out. So I don't want to take any more time away from River. So River's going to do some reading and talking to us from High Wind Warning.
Yes. Zach, you know how grateful I am to you. It's beyond words. I don't have the words to describe that gratitude, but I'm also so grateful to everyone who's here because this is a really, really special moment for me. So it's a lot more meaningful and profound than you might realize. So thank you for being here. Yes, I am doing this from Wyoming right now. I am a Gemini, so part of me always yearns for the desert, and there's always a part of me that has to have a little bit of mountains, a little bit of the other extreme. But High Wind Warning is, like Zach said, my first poetry book. It's really an encapsulation of my experience falling in love with a landscape and how that allowed me to then fall in love with the people in it. And then conversely, how experiencing heartbreak and betrayal from people in a place can really shift or recolor your perception of that. So it's called High Wind Warning because after I went through this kind of intense period of inspiration and devastation, at the end of it, I was suffering from everything that I was holding on to, and being so aware of always seeing this high wind warning was really something that brought me into this reflection state of recognizing this breathless chaos that was blowing around inside of me. That external world really allowed me to be aware of it. And then because I was aware of it, I was ultimately able to start processing it and putting it into words. It's a collection of acrostics with a couple telestic acrostics thrown in. And I think that might seem silly or interesting because acrostics are this kind of underappreciated form of poetry. It's one of the first forms of poetry that I think everybody is forced to write somewhere in elementary school. But the reason that this book is specifically acrostic really comes in two parts. The first is that the form provides enough structure that it becomes quite a safe space to be able to pour out a magnitude of emotions and still have it contained in some way. So it enabled me to confront feelings of being overwhelmed or manic or lost or sad without just spiraling and disintegrating onto the page. It was a structure that really did hold me up. And at the same time, there's still enough freedom with acrostics. You're not adhering to a type of syllable count or rhyme scheme. So I felt like I could say what I needed without compromising or sacrificing any of those emotions or elements. And then the other reason is that at the time that I decided to write all these poems, which really was almost a fever dream in the span of a month, it was a time where I was really self-isolating as a result of just the micro traumas of grief and of experience and of life. But to be able to feel like I was part of a tradition of poetry that goes back to the ancient Greeks in a really funny way, it made me feel so much less alone and really gave me just that almost illusion of connection that I needed to be able to heal and prepare myself and be willing to be more vulnerable and build more present day connections. I think history can sometimes be such a beautiful way to validate existence and persistence and resilience and a sense of self. So it's really meaningful to me that these poems are tied to that acrostic tradition. So with all that being said, there are 5 poems that I've kind of bookmarked to read. The first one is an acrostic called Campfire. And the collection itself is actually, if you read it cover to cover, quite chronological for myself. So this is relatively near the beginning. And like I said, it's an acrostic for campfire. Can I take you somewhere around here where the air meets the sleeping sugar pines, turning cold and starry for just one night? We should stay up, imagining how tomorrow can be rescued from the sticky but separate life each of us is chasing. And this next one, usually I don't typically want to divulge too much about a poem because I think the beauty of poetry is that it can be so personal and so expressive for the poet, and then it can become whatever the reader needs it to be in a certain sense. So I intentionally like to keep it a little bit more vague, but I do think for this acrostic, it's an acrostic for 4 seasons. And if anyone has been out to the 4 seasons right outside of Santa Fe, perhaps at sunset, then I just want you to hold that image and you'll kind of know what I mean. And if you haven't been out there, I might just ask you to envision what you would imagine would be the perfect place to fall out of love, but pretend that you're not. Funny how our eyes drift over those blonde hills to catch the sunsets unraveling, our colored drinks rimmed with isotopic words. Somehow what I was thinking escaped you after another round of cosmos and cranberries, so soft that the cold wasn't cold outside. Maybe I was never supposed to say what I wanted, so it wouldn't be silent if you never responded. And in this collection, like I said, it's a bit chronological. So there is a more subtle transition from the more idealistic, romanticized parts of existence into a little bit more of the darkness and the hurt. But just for the sake of time, I'm going to divert us all immediately into that darkness. That being said, I do think that we always have to keep a dreaminess with our darkness, maybe not so much a romanticization, but something along the lines of kintsugi, the idea that anything that becomes broken actually becomes more valuable. So even with the poems that feel the most pain, I do always try to hold space for almost an awe of that pain because of that. So this is an acrostic for Black and Blue. But I didn't bruise like you thought I did. I didn't ache or change colors like the Santa Fe vista knocked over on its side against the horizon. I made art. No one noticed during the dark sky calls you gave because your car-sick conversations left more of a permanent mark under my thin skin. I wish every word could taste like sips of that. And I know that I said that I generally like to keep my poems vague and not get too much into the person that inspired it or the moment. And this is the second out of 5 poems where I'm going a little bit more into detail. So obviously that's not necessarily true. But this one I think is really important to acknowledge. It's an acrostic for Cormac. And it's almost an ode, if you will, to Cormac McCarthy, because at a time in my life where I really was struggling with experiencing heartbreak from people and then letting that bleed into feeling like the place that I was in was breaking my heart, that Santa Fe was somehow breaking my heart, those feelings got so infused, and it was hard to see past it. And Cormac McCarthy was absolutely the person and the writing that reminded me of the pieces of the Land of Enchantment that just set my soul on fire, that I needed, that I could never afford to let go of. So he really is a very important figure in this erratic love story of my life at that time. So again, this is an acrostic for Cormac. Can you ever love someone oblivious to your face and reckoning with deserts you don't miss, someone who doesn't know about how in dreams you name yourself after canyons they created? So this last poem is an acrostic for Reckless, and it's actually kind of the last poem in the collection before it feels like a reconciliation at the end. And the reason that it's really special for me to read this poem is it's a very, very important and powerful time in my life where I was able to, through all the poems that I had written leading up to it, I was able to look back on moments that had been painful or had been regretted or had been confusing, and I just couldn't figure out the answer. And I was able to just appreciate it all and have a smile when I thought about it. It was less of a radical enlightenment moment where I could just let everything go and be fine with it. But it was some type of split of transcendence, I think, that can sometimes enable us to make that transition from something ending to being open to something else beginning. So that's what this moment is. Restaurants were my favorite place to go, eat food I didn't need, and drink coffee in every cocktail I ordered, killing time with poetry books that blurred the late night visions of lonely faces every time I looked down. There's something sweet about being barefoot after that Southwest last call. Zach and I always have this running joke that every time I talk to him or I'm around him, it makes me cry. So thank you so much for allowing me to share that. That's everything that I had. And I'm really excited to hear Vivian's completely different perspective. I already know there's so much I'm going to learn from it. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, River. Again, I get to do the spiel. It's actually River's artwork on the cover as well. Like I was talking about where to source the art from. I changed the color and put some words on it. But this is River through and through, this whole book. And it's just so sweet. The poems are so it was so hard when I first read the book not to just read the whole thing straight through in one shot. And yet you still want to like stop and savor each one of these like it's a bite of chocolate mousse or something. So on the Casa Urraca Press website, pre-orders available. I do like to ship them out a little before the official publication date, so that's your way to get it early. You can also pre-order this one right now through your favorite local indie bookstore or whatever. They should be able to find it with the title High Wind Warning or the author name River Stingray. Thank you so much, River. Good job. Man, I don't even know how to introduce Vivian here because her book came to me a couple or 3 months after Rivers did. And so it's just funny how they've been in my mind, in my heart, braided together this whole time. But I feel like Vivian and I, the more I get to know her, the more I feel like we could have been siblings in another or best friends in another era. I grew up saying musically, at least I was born in the wrong decade. And Vivian is a rock and roller. And she has been the places I only read about in books as a kid. And it's pretty incredible. But her book, Talking Leaves Scrapbook, came to me in a very different way through one of the big champions of this press, who I've never actually met in person, Jimmy Santiago Baca. But he dropped me a note one day and said, "Hey, there's this woman, Vivian, you need to read her poems." And when Jimmy tells you to read someone's poems, you listen. And then I still have to look at it and go, am I the right champion for this? And I had never read poems like Vivian's. There's back to that idea of poetry being oral. One of the things I look for is can I feel this being read out loud? Which is why I'm so excited to hear Vivian read tonight, because I've never actually heard her read these poems. But when I read them on the page, they come alive. And she's just inspiring. I mean, she graduated from IAIA in Santa Fe with her MFA at 72. Vivian, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 72. And here you are publishing your first collection. A lot of the poems have been published in journals and magazines, but your debut book's coming out now, and I just know there's a lot more to come, and it's so freaking exciting. So I was actually just working on polishing off her book cover design this afternoon. We're not quite there yet, Vivian, but almost. But here's what it's gonna kind of look like, this wonderful picture of Vivian just a few years ago. Talking Leaf Scrapbook. It is also available for pre-order on the Casa Urraca Press website, and will very soon be available through all your favorite bookstores. But you can pre-order it now and get it in June. Vivian, I'm just gonna let you run with it from here. I'm so excited for this.
Okay, unmute myself. Okay, hello. I got my MFA in 2020 actually, and what I tend to write about is my childhood or family or my culture. I'm Cherokee, or relationships, and I'm really heavily into imagery, rhythm of the words, the syntax. Sings in the wrong order, it's fine with me. That's the way I do it. So I have, I think, 6 poems for you. They're all kind of different, and that's why I chose them. The first one is Cherokee 7. It has to do with 7 being an important word for Cherokees. So I wrote 7 stanzas, each 1 line apiece, 7 syllables in each line. Cherokee 7's: starlight, music, cradle song. Animals once spoke to us, their gift, 7 logs for fire. Silver wing winds carry me high. I swim beyond sun's echo, dive deep into dark water. On turtle's back, I ride home. Riding after her. In a grainy black and white movie, my mother waves from a white horse. She could be Georgia O'Keeffe astride a Harley. Naming me after a bird and flower, she sprinkled atlas seeds on my eyes, left blank pages for me to paint. A sunset journey pulls her away. Tracing her roots, I drive east. Roadside deer-eyed daisies nod. Thistle spikes bloom shadows across rusted rails. A red-winged blackbird's three-pitched song trills. Time to stop, time to stop. Fireflies garland indigo skies. Nautilus curved, my mother sleeps on a birch bark bed. At dawn, I throttle through pink pale, music hubbing around an old 8-track. Chevelle tires spin, clomp, gallop. Hooves scoop out dust trails. Hunched to horsehide, I ride bareback, wind rippling a white mane. Night Trip Blue. This one is actually in that New Mexico poetry anthology that Levi and Michelle put together. Night Trip Blue. 26 corrugated miles to Chaco Canyon's Dark Star Party. My car hums a corduroy tune. It's a sandy wash, chases dust plumes wet. Curtains of deep marquisette unfold as sunset flashes green. Gatekeepers, coyote, puppet, kangaroo rat lash down the night. Starry Cygnus glides south, patrolling the Milky Way. Forever gleaming, Space Lab imitates a sheer. High desert night chill trusts to seek heat inside a car buried neath a mesa's inky shadow. I limbo between the entwined arms arcing the road. Behind silhouetted tree trunks, racing headlights stalk my path. At 550's junction, gas fields glow pale, companion lights lost. 2 deer rest in dry grass, heads tracing my passage. Their hides are blue. In daylight, I return. There are no deer, no forest embraces the road. Unseen, the Milky Way swirls. A hand reaches out, snags the echoes of blues flying by. In your dreams do I smile. On your first tour, I sped through 5 counties to see you. Standing next to the stage, I worried you wouldn't find me. Daring to fix your old hurts, I booked tickets for bus, plane, and train, traveled 5 states in 14 days to hear you sing my name. Do I ever cross your mind? Getting lost on roads, not stopping at fated villages, weighing directions at railroad junctions. I don't even remember the name of that Indian casino up north. A meet and greet view with stars poking pure in the blackness of night. All you did was hold my hand. Lone teen, I should be over you now, past being swept off my feet. I never look the way I feel in photographs of us. Am I peering through eye holes of a mask? Who do you see when you look at me? Cigarettes in packs, night wind perfuming river gorge, parking lot littered with autumn leaves, snowdrift to mid-thigh. You say you've seen me in cities I've never been. Is this your dream or mine? Stage lights dim, curtains part. I refold my memory map, jockey it back into the glove box. Butterfly crossing. Hurricane buffeted, 3,000 miles off course, a figure-8 flutterbird topples on Dorset sand, orange scales, pale, still wings, brittle. I fly transatlantic, board 2 red buses, spy a brick house with iron fence, open bay windows, perfumed blossoms. I don't stop. You might not be home. It might not be your house. In a rented Muse flat, I sip honey tea, slip into cosmic dancer's skin, pose, back arched, foot in hand, balancing a butterfly's heart, floating the length of me. Red petals part, tongue tastes amber beads. This is a long poem, so I saved it for last. Straw Boys. I pedal a green 2-wheeler, bat 24-inch tires squishing into July's hot road. Ahead, my sister's slender capri legs pump her narrow tires fast, faster, sprocket teeth eating through chain. Speed snaps and jerks the beaded coin purse, dangling from a leather strap around her wrist. She knows I can't catch up. My handlebars edge a field of blazing wheat, buckling in summer's breeze. Inside, swaying heads, ripe kernels chat like red-eyed cicadas. Peter's bike shudders past bare-limbed peach trees, dirt shortcut toward Palmateer's market. I shove my rear pedal down, braking, front tire kissing black and white high tops, stretched across a dry ditch. Elmer squints pale eyes behind wire frame lenses. 6 years earlier, we were the same squat yellow bus to kindergarten. How you been, I ask. Inside a gimme shelter t-shirt, one knobby shoulder bobs like a red apple in water. He lifts a dented beer can, litter from a passing car. Wheat straw pokes out church key bite. The taste is warm, amber. At the kitchen table, I clip an obit from the Daily Journal, detailing the death of Elmer's Marine brother in a faraway place called Quezon. I show it to my mother. She nods, says nothing about the sourdough scent of beer wafting like flies around my hair. One knee bloody, sister slams the screen door, hollers how I left her waiting at the market. On her way home, a dusty pickup truck had crept up behind her, blaring its horn inches away from her red reflector. Sister tumbled to the blacktop, bike basket mangled, bread flattened, milk carton contents spreading white. Hay and straw sifted from the passing truck bed. There's laughter also scattering down the road. Behind my mother as she inspects sister's knee. No one mentions her teen crush on the young driver or shares news of his recent enlistment. My stomach slips, realizing I prefer sister's rage now. Then her racked tears when Jules realized awarded. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. And thank you, everybody.
Gosh, thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you for reading. Yeah, these are powerful poems in this book. I don't even I don't have words for it. I can't overstate it. Thank you for reading, Vivian. That's all I got, except for I feel crass now doing this, but please go pre-order Vivian's book if any of that spoke to you. Yes,
Thank you so much.
It's going to be a good one.
Thank you so much, Zach and River and Vivian. Yeah, just tremendous readings. And I think we do have a few minutes for some Q&A if or responses of any sort. So we'll open the floor. Just raise your hand if
And
you.
feel free to, you can put something in the chat, or if
Yeah,
you.
you could either put it in the chat or you could raise your hand and we'll call on you, either one.
And thank you again, both River and Vivian. That's very moving. Vivian, I noticed in your bio that Zach sent over that you have a little bit of a circus background with some costuming. Does that, I just
Yes,
found
I
that
work
really
for
interesting.
Brothers,
Do
yes.
anything you want to
I
say
work
about
for
that?
Yes, and for their clown college, I actually taught how to make their own costumes, and then I worked at Circus Works, redoing. They have two shows. Well, they did the red and the blue, and so I was redoing one of the costumes for one of those road shows.
Oh,
Very
wonderful.
interesting.
Yeah. That's circuses can be very poetic or very magical
Oh yeah.
places.
We have a good friend in Minnesota who was actually went to high school in Albuquerque, Lauren Nemi, and he comes down here a lot. And he just did a novel about traveling with a circus called Circus Rex. Yeah. So yeah, there's something so fascinating about and that whole kind of Americana thing or lost Americana thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Joe Sorensen, did you have a
Audio now
question?
unmuted. It's actually me, but anyway,
Okay.
it's all good. Just wanted to compliment both of you. Good reading. And River, are you a student?
No, I'm not, but I'm going to take that as compliment. No, I actually graduated when I was 21. So I went to college a little bit early and have been out for the simple math is not simple to me. I believe 7 years. I'm 27 now.
Oh, okay. I was just curious, on that. But no, nice job.
Definitely great reading. Oh yes, GR, great reading.
Yeah.
And
both
great
of you.
background. Oh, and your dog. I don't know if you have a photo of your dog, but we were all loving the dog.
No, in the other room right now. I'll see if I can.
Anyway.
Kate,
Okay.
Kate
Looks
Wegerson
like
has her
Kate.
hand up.
Kate has your hand up.
Kate in Colorado.
Yes, I have a question for Vivian, and I enjoyed so much listening to your family and your experiences. And one thing that really captured my thoughts was you, with Old Hurts, you traveled 5 states to hear you sing my name. And I totally feel that passion, but I was curious where you were traveling from and to.
It was a tour that went from the bottom of California, San Diego, all the way up to Canada.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm glad that you searched that sense of, I wonder if you remember me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else or put in the chat?
I will just call out that Koa, the dog, is now in frame, if anyone was
Yeah.
wondering.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, this is Kama. This is the one who, before Zach, is usually the first eyes on the poem. So she did so good. You did so good.
Good.
Can you guys hear me? I'm Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Hi,
Yeah.
Holly.
Okay, because I can't see, I've been having some kind of trouble. And I can't see myself, but anyways,
We can see you. We can see you and
that's
hear
great.
you.
I'm glad because I cannot see me. So hi, everybody. So I didn't,
Sometimes if you
because I missed the
click,
beginning. Where are you all from? And where's the press?
the press is Abiquiu.
Okay. So you guys are from
and-
here. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
and-
We are in our local New Mexico press. Yep. So
And
thank you.
River is up in Wyoming, and Vivian is in Moriarty.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Very cool. Well, that's great.
And Holly is in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I'm in
South Valley.
Albuquerque.
She's in the South Valley. Yeah.
Yeah,
She has
I'm
a
in the South
farm.
Valley, but you know, Albuquerque is a great place for poetry. It's building up. Or things are happening here with poetry, so it's great. And you guys are part of it. So
Very
thank you.
Well,
Thank
Zach,
you
if you
for the
will,
reading.
we'll
Nice to
wrap
meet you
this.
guys.
Oh, thank you, Holly. So Zach, do you want to say the website again for our video listeners and anything?
Yes, I will.
planned?
And then I also just want to make sure we see that Billy has his hand up too, I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But yes,
Just happened.
we are at
Yeah.
we're at casaurracapress.com. That's Casa CASA Urraca URRACA press.com. That's Spanish for Magpie House, representing here. And we have all the press titles available there. Some exclusive editions of certain titles, and pre-sales, such as Vivian's and Rivers right now.
Yeah, I wish we had magpies here like they do up north of here. Yeah. But yeah, they're wonderful.